everyone, welcome to another episode of Subtle Asian Voices. I am one of your hosts, Daphne, located in Los Angeles, California. And today we have a really special guest, one of my really good friends, Christine. Thank you so much for being here. She's an amazing human being, and we can't wait to hear her story about her current mental health journey. So Christine, why don't you introduce yourself, where you're from, and then also give us a fun fact about yourself.
Okay, well, hi. Thanks for having me. I'm Christine. I am located in Orange County, California, so not too far from LA. And my fun fact is that my dog Soju, I have had her since she was 6 weeks old, but the first week and a half that I had her, I thought she was a boy for some reason. Yeah, so that it was very confusing day of Google searching when we found out.
How did you find out she was a girl instead of a boy?
My housemate was like picked her up and he was like, yeah, Soju's a girl, right? And we were like, no, Soju's a boy. Like I specifically like held her up to one of my friends and I was like, this was a boy, right? And she was like, yeah, but she was distracted by the puppies. So like, I think that's kind of why like we didn't. Yeah. I don't know what puppy genitalia is supposed to look like. It's just all the same down
Well,
there.
well, at least now we know Soju's a girl and she's amazing and I love her.
She's,
She's so cute.
yes, she's a princess.
All right. So shameless social media plug, guys. If you haven't already hit like, go ahead and smash that like button, hit subscribe so you don't miss any more of our videos and you can kind of stay tuned with our amazing content like this lady over here. I'm so excited. Okay. So basically what's going to happen, I'm going to ask Christine some questions and we're going to kind of chat about her mental health journey. So if you wouldn't mind, Christine, starting from the beginning, when did it start? You were saying something in college and how that went for you. Would you mind sharing with us?
Yeah, so I think probably I started feeling like something was kind of not okay, like when I was going through college, specifically like my second going to my third year. And I kind of chalked it all up to just be like, oh, it's just college. Everybody has a hard time in college. It's a new world. You're stressed, you're like meeting all of these different people. And like around that time, I had been dating somebody for maybe around like 6 9 months, and it started kind of going really downhill, unfortunately, but it definitely did not help my mental health, on top of being on like academic probation and going through like financial struggles because I had lost my financial aid because my grades had gotten so bad. Like it was just one thing on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. And on top of all that, I was like basically isolated from all my friends because I was dating this guy, which, it like in hindsight, it really sucks to say that it kind of took a guy to trigger all of this. But like if it hadn't have happened, I wouldn't have gotten the help that I needed to where I am today. So I think probably in college, like I was clinically depressed. Didn't find that out until like a few months after I had graduated college.
That,
So
that's like
that
a
was kind of the beginning.
That sounds really rough. Like it sounds like you've had a bit of a one situation after another after another. It's kind of like a tale of unfortunate events that kind of all piled up,
Yeah.
right? And unfortunately,
Yeah.
it ended up to where you are. But I feel like that's a lot of stories that we hear from people as well. So I don't think you're the only one. So I feel like you sharing that is going to really open conversations with people. So can we dive into your initial understanding of mental health, what you looked like or what that looked like for you back then, especially as an Asian American, because a lot of us have a lot of stigma around mental health. So can you share more
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm actually an undergrad. I was a psychology major, and I remember like my mom, like obviously I'm Filipino, so she was like, "Are you sure you don't want to be a nurse? Like, why do you want to go into psychology? Are you gonna like work with crazy people?" And my mom's a nurse too, so like I'm not bagging on my mom, but it's just like our understanding of mental health is like mental illness, like the really, I'm not going to say more difficult, but the more debilitating and more serious mental illnesses like schizophrenia, depression doesn't exist in an Asian household. Usually it doesn't exist in my household. Back then it was just like, okay, well, suck it up, get over it, pray, do something, you got to keep going, like, so it wasn't until probably like eighth grade, middle school, I kind of, found out what depression was because I had friends who suffered from it, and that's why I wanted to go into psychology. My original plan was to become a school counselor so I could help kids, and then I got a little bit older, and I was like, how am I going to help people if I'm a mess? But I think, like as I got older, especially in college, you really kind of start understanding what it really means to take care of your mental health as well as your physical health, and how those two tie in together on top of just living life. So
Gotcha. I feel like that's very similar to my family too. Like mental health, my family, when I think about it, it's like someone is in a really dark situation, which is true, right? I feel like,
yeah.
but the thing is about mental health, you kind of have to start from the beginning, like what good mental health is versus like what negative mental health means. And then there's like a
Yeah.
spectrum in between. And then you have mental illness, which is like what we usually associate it with, right?
Yeah.
And it's such taboo to talk about it until now because of everyone you're realizing is suffering through this. But back then, you couldn't give it a name because one, it'd be
Mhm.
like, like a pride thing for your family, or two, it's like you don't even know what to describe it with. You didn't have the words or the vocabulary. So like
Yeah.
hearing this and getting this kind of the word out there about what mental health really is really going to help kind of foster these continued conversations. And so when you talk to your parents about this, how did they react? What was their initial, what did they say to you initially? Like, how did they interact with you after you told them about your mental health situation?
Yeah. So I think I first told my mom that I was considering going to see a therapist when I was like my third year of college. And she was like, "Why do you need to go see a therapist? Why can't you just talk to me?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I don't want to, on top of her being a single mom, like I didn't want to add to her plate." And it's just, I don't know, I'm like the type of person where like it's easier for me to share stuff with strangers than it is to share with my friends, like at least in the beginning, because then it's like you have that detachment. You're like, if you judge me, I'm never going to see you again. I just don't have to come back. But if it's your family, you're like, hey, remember when I told you that I was having these really dark thoughts and I didn't want to exist anymore? That's not your fault. Don't worry. But like, I'm still having those. Like, it's a hard, difficult conversation to have, especially when it's the person who gave birth to you, because it's just, you don't want to feel like a burden to them. So I think my mom, like, really, like, she's really struggling. Like, she really struggled with understanding why I needed to go seek outside help. And I honestly, I just like put it off for the longest time. And it wasn't until probably like the summer after I had graduated, I had just started working full time. I unfortunately had a really bad um, episode where, I unfortunately had like, ended up self-harming. And it was kind of that turning point where I was like, okay, no, this this is like the second really bad episode that I've had where I've hurt myself. I don't want to go through this again. Like, I have my resources now. I'm still on my mom's insurance, so let's use that Kaiser insurance card to go get some help. And I started seeing my therapist November 2018. So I've been seeing her like every week since then, besides holidays. And yeah, it's just, I think my mom finally like eventually came around. I think it was definitely coming from a place of worry, like, oh, as a mother, like I'm probably failing my child because like she's not coming to me for help. She's like struggling with all these things. And like she definitely had, like had that guilt. But it took a little bit of explaining to be like, it's not your fault. Like, this is my own life. Like, this is my own responsibility to take care of myself. Like, this is something that I really want to do. But like leading up until like I told her that yeah, so I'm on antidepressants now, like everything was cool. Like she was like, cool, so you're talking to somebody, like you're not depressed anymore, you're working through your anxiety, like that's great.
Like,
And
check,
then
check.
I was, yeah, she was like, cool, like your energy's up, you're smiling, you're happy. And then I was like, oh yeah, it's because I'm on antidepressants now. And she was like, what? I feel like when people hear like medication, like they're really like, it's like a drug. So they're really scared of like you becoming dependent on it and you like having an addiction to it. And like honestly, it's like a daily Tylenol. Like, and it just gives me more energy to get out of bed. And like honestly, like it's helped a lot. Like I would strongly agree that it's helped me a lot being on medication. And I wish more people were not as concerned because of the stigma that surrounds it, taking antidepressants and like other SSRIs, but it's pretty normal.
I feel like when you think antidepressant, what comes to people's minds is like, oh, I have to take something extra to help me feel happy. It's almost like I've heard people it feels like a cheat to them almost, right? Um, what made you overcome that hurdle? So what in your mind was like, okay, I can take this? Was it because of the situation? Was it because of what your therapist said? Would you mind sharing a little bit more about that?
Yeah, honestly, so it was my therapist's suggestion to like look into it because we had noticed like I was doing all of the work. Like I was practicing all the tools that I was learning in our sessions. Like I was doing my best to, really use everything that I was learning and applying it to my own life. But I was still having these really bad, like depressive episodes. And it would take me like weeks to crawl out of it. And then I would hit another like hole again and I would just be stuck there. And I was like, what's really triggering this? And I would notice that every time my period was about to arrive, my PMS wasn't like normal PMS. It was really bad. Like I was having like really dark thoughts, like I wasn't eating or I was eating too much. Like it was very unbalanced. And my therapist was like, you should probably ask your doctor about getting something because I think it's more of a chemical imbalance that you're going through right now because you're doing everything like you're doing your best to do everything that you're learning, but like you might need a little bit more help, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I was like, honestly, I'll do anything. Like I'll ask. Like I'm totally fine with that. If it helps me like get out of bed in the morning, like why not?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I'm glad you had a really positive experience on it because I feel like there's a lot of like ebbs and flows that I hear about. Some people react really well to it, some people don't. And I'm glad to hear like a positive experience from you because the idea of like getting out of bed in the morning, where you just want to like jump out of bed, get your day started, brush your teeth, do all that stuff. You
Yeah.
take care of your dog too. You have like a whole other fur baby to kind of consider, right? And I can't even imagine what that was like for you when you first got up in the morning. I was like, oh, I have to like do this again. But the fact that like it feels like it's like a huge burden off your shoulders, when you can actually get
Yeah.
up, run around, and be like, I'm gonna get ready, I gotta get my dog ready, I gotta go to work. And for us who can't really imagine what that's like, right? For people who haven't gone through depression, can you kind of put it in words what that was like for you, like experiencing that on the daily?
Um, it was definitely like I was on autopilot all the time. And then if I ever had like time to myself, I was just kind of like just sitting in like a dark, if I could describe it, it was like sitting in like a dark room all the time, even if I was like outdoors or if I was going to work. And it was just like just feeling tired and not really wanting to do anything. Like I really love like blogging and content creating in my free time. Like that's how much I love doing that. And like not even that was like bringing me joy. Like the normal, like I wasn't singing around the house, like, and I love singing. So it's just like I wasn't doing like any of the things that were making me really happy. And I feel like the only safe place that I really like felt at peace was like with my dog and like going on walks with my dog. And like that was like really the only thing. But like what my partner at the time, like it wasn't helpful. Like we were going through some stuff. So like I wasn't feeling that great even when I was with him. And like work was like a whole other thing where it's like my first full-time job coming out of school. So it was like a lot of pressure to like, like please don't fire me. Like I need this job. I need to pay rent. And
Yeah.
just dealing with like I feel like a lot of it was just like fighting myself
Mhm.
most of the time. It was a lot of like negative self-talk that made everything that I was feeling like 10 times worse. So a lot of it was just like, okay, just stop beating yourself up. You need to stop doing that. It's not going to help at all. So let's just start there and take it one day at a time, one step at a time, and we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I mean, giving yourself grace is so important. We always forget about that because I feel like we're hardest on ourselves, right? And I'm glad you were able to find a place where you were able to do that. And hopefully, if someone else is hearing your story, can kind of give themselves grace as well. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing. So can you tell us how you found your therapist, how you went about like, were you interviewing multiple therapists at a time, or did you just kind of go through one and was like, oh, she's it? Like, what about your therapist would you like, okay, this clicks?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I honestly I got really really lucky because I was lucky enough to find a therapist that I really liked and agreed with like her methods the first time.
Wow.
That's not the case with a lot of people, and like it's very disheartening like for a lot of people because it's hard. Like, how are you gonna consistently open up to like a complete stranger, have it not work out, and then it's like dating almost, you know, like
Yeah.
it's so exhausting. So I got super lucky with my therapist. I'm insured by Kaiser. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but like I'm on my mom's
Yeah,
insurance. So I was
whatever.
like, okay, let's do this. So they basically had me do an assessment, and they just were kind of taking things like down. They're asking me questions like, are you sleeping enough? Like, how are you feeling? Have you ever thought about hurting yourself or anybody else? Like, are you like fidgety and restless, or like the opposite, like are you moving so slowly that people are noticing? It's basically like a very general assessment to kind of get where you're at. And then they would ask you like situational questions like, do you have a partner? Like, do you have a family? Who do you like, what's your living situation like? What's your work situation like? So after a while, I think it took about like 2-3 weeks, almost a month, before I got a call back, setting up my like initial appointment with my therapist. And I was very confused at first because I was like, hi, like they gave me this number and I never got a call. And and her name, like, she was like, oh yeah, well, this is so and so, you know, like we can, like, I can schedule you in for like 9 a.m, blah blah blah. And I was like, wait, is this like her assistant, or is this the person I'm supposed to talk to? And it's her, so she just runs everything herself. And like my big thing was, initially I wanted a woman of color,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day I just wanted a woman therapist to speak
Yeah.
to. And like she's white, so like I was a little nervous if she would like understand the kind of like nuances of like my culture and like what it, like how my family affects my culture and everything. But she's really cool. Like, but she's really cool. She's very, I don't want to say woke, but like it's just, you know, I'm not afraid to talk about like politics with her, especially considering you know, the state of the world right now. But she knows how like big of a thing that is for me. So it's nice to have somebody who just kind of gets it. And you know, like she's just a great therapist.
So it's so good to hear. I feel like the
Yeah.
idea of finding a therapist for a lot of people is pretty daunting because it's like it's never really easy, honestly. Because I was looking for my therapist, I had to like Google everyone, and then like what do they do? What do they like? What do they value? What are their methods, right? And I'm glad that you found someone that clicked with you. Were you able to like find her profile online, or was it someone that was like assigned to you automatically?
She was basically just assigned to me.
Okay.
And then I think like they asked me like, what like location or certain area do you want, you know, to go? Because I would go in person before COVID. I still kind of do, but like I think I'm the only one of her clients who comes in person. Everybody's remote. It's kind of nice to get out of the my house and like go see another human being. But so they just gave me like a general like, okay, around this area, maybe like 5 miles around this area, what time usually works for you. I think the only thing that I was super worried about of like going to sessions was like, oh, I have to work. Like, is work gonna give me time off? Like, am I gonna lose PTO? Like, do I have to use my vacation days? And you know, thankfully, like my director of HR like was super understanding about it. She has family members who like go see therapists too, and she's like, just do whatever you need, like we'll figure out your time card and everything. So and I've been really lucky to also have bosses who understand too, and I don't have to be like, hey, just go talk to HR, you know, like I have to go here. So it's nice to, I know I'm very fortunate and very blessed to have a situation that accounts for that. So it
Yeah.
just worked out.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear such a positive experience. So, I mean, mental health support now, I feel like it's such a big deal. A lot of people here are actually getting more and more educated about it. And the fact that your bosses are so open to it. I didn't even know you could ask your boss to like get time off for mental health. I would never have thought of it. Oh yeah, like I mean, just schedule it like before or after work and just like squeeze it in there, right? But it's good to know
Exactly.
that you can actually open that conversation. So I would never would
Yeah.
have, right? Oh,
Yeah.
I think your camera went out.
Oh no.
There we go.
Oh my God.
That's all good. You can edit this.
My AirPods disconnected and I was trying to sneakily connect them back.
Dang.
Because you're very faint right
Like,
now, but it's okay. I can still hear you.
cool. Okay. So we'll edit that out. Okay. So thanks for sharing that. I feel like that's really important for people to hear about how to find a therapist. I don't think people really know what the steps are too. FYI guys, if you need to find a therapist, you can also go on Psychology Today, and then you can also find people who actually take your insurance, which is really nice as well. So getting that coverage because you already have it. So Christine, if you wouldn't mind telling us where you're at currently in your mental health journey, like tell us more about that from when you started in 2018 until now. It's been 3 years, it's a long time.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully I am in a much better place than where I was 3 years ago. Yay. I don't think I'm clinically depressed anymore. I do still struggle with anxiety on the daily, but it's gotten more manageable. Like I definitely don't have those really major depressive episodes anymore. Like my day-to-day is more manageable. Like I'm actually, singing around the house again. Like I'm doing stuff that I love. And like if things aren't like, working out, like I don't immediately spiral into my doom spiral and like, what if this happens? What if this happens? Like, definitely in a much better environment too, surrounded by people who really care about me.
That's so excellent. Yay.
Yeah. So I'm just, I'm really glad that a big part of like my growth was really just telling myself like, hey, you deserve to be happy. Like, why do you keep telling yourself that like this is what you want? I think I was just really scared. And I think this is very common for a lot of people who struggle with depression and anxiety. When you start not feeling sad, it's foreign to you because you're just so used to being down all the time. But you kind of just want to go back into your hole and just like, cover yourself with sand and just hide. But it's like, you have to let yourself accept that like, hey, you're on a different path now and it's working out. Like, let's just keep going. And, you got here once. And if you slip back, you can get there again. Like healing growth is never linear. There's going to be ups and downs. So just giving yourself grace and, asking for help when you need it. Like that's definitely been like a really big point in my journey for me. So
yeah. Can you just like kind of a side note, how much of that mental health journey in terms of being Asian American, was that something that affected your journey at all with your cultural values, things like that?
I think definitely in the beginning it did, but I don't know. I always kind of struggled with my identity as like a Filipino American because I grew up very Americanized and my family didn't really push me to like, be ingrained in my culture. They tried, but I was just like, no, I'm my hamburgers. It's not even like, being whitewashed. I grew up around a lot of other people of color too. So I think I was just kind of like at a certain point when I was old enough to start making my own decisions, I was just like, okay, like this is kind of ridiculous to say that like nobody needs to take care of their mental health. Like it's not just for people with mental illness. We all need to have peace of mind and we all need to feel comfortable in our own skin and our own heads. So like by the time I got older, I was just like, all right, mom, relax. Like everything's gonna be okay. Like it's all right.
Yeah.
But I do think it's helped with how I connect with other people. I have like a small community of other content creators that I made friends with. And we talk a lot about mental health and just being vulnerable. A lot of my platform is just having those kind of open-ended talks where I'm just like, hey, so I was struggling with this, and honestly, like that really sucked. But if you guys are going through the same thing, like I'm here for you. We can get through it together. Let's just lift each other up because life's hard. So why would we make it harder for ourselves?
Exactly. And that's what I love about your Instagram, by the way. Guys, we'll link her Insta below. Go ahead and click and follow that. She has some amazing content there. And honestly, the thing about Instagram is it can feel so ingenuine. You know what I mean? And I love that you put yourself out there because people need to hear that. And people see like perfection on all of our social media and like everything's curated, right? But people don't understand that that's just on the surface, which is amazing. So thank you for sharing about that. And guys, like follow her Insta, we'll link it down below. Okay, so let's talk about dating in the future then. So you said that your mental health journey kind of started with the guy, right? Which it started for me too. Like mental health journey definitely tanked after a negative dating relationship. And so I can definitely identify with that. But can you tell us what that looks like for you?
Yeah. So I mean, I guess like a little bit of background a little bit. basically that relationship that I had in college was really bad. Um, at its best, it was toxic. At its worst, it was emotionally abusive. Like my ex used to try to coerce me into having threesomes with like and setting them up, and I'd be like, no, and was like, well, if you love me, you're gonna do it. I'm like, no, you don't even call me your girlfriend anymore. So it was a lot of just, feeling like I was worth nothing other than my body, and or just like, just being somebody's like support or like arm candy or whatever, and that really messed with my head, and it messed with my relationships after that. And I think I just like started to just kind of believe that like I don't deserve to be happy. Like, what guy is gonna like look at me and say like, that's an amazing like human being, like she deserves the world, let me give her the world. I actually really started to believe that, because it just the relationships that I had after, it was just seemed like it was like the same pattern that was repeating. Thankfully I have a little bit more of a grasp of my sense of self and my self-worth, and like I stopped telling myself that like I didn't deserve to be happy and I didn't deserve to be with somebody who cared about me and like truly saw me for who I am. Hopefully in the future, like my experiences with dating and relationships will be better and I end up with an amazing guy who treats me like a queen. So we'll see.
You hear
Yeah.
that? Treat your women like queens because they're your objects.
Worship the ground she walks on.
Give us compliments. Just give us all the things, we just
and food.
love.
That's it.
Yeah, and also puppies.
It's not that hard.
Tell us we're pretty like every day. It's the thing that we
literally. Even when I look like crap, just you look beautiful. Thanks.
Exactly. It's how we literally woke up like that. So we want to hear, we look good.
But we can tell if you're lying, though. We can.
Yeah, you got to just be genuine about it. So you can't just be like, oh, you look good just for the sake of making us happy. We want you to actually mean it, right? But you do deserve somebody who loves you for you, because you're an amazing human being, guys. Like I've known her since 2018, and seeing her grow like this has been like amazing also. So proud of you and so happy for you too. Look at that smile. Okay. Yeah.
I love you.
Love you too. Okay. So in that case then, so can you tell us more about your support network? So that's a huge part of mental health, right? Everyone who surrounds you is what's going to contribute to your healing, or I guess you're not healing. So can you tell us more about that, more about your community, what they've done for you and the things that you've experienced with that?
Yeah, I mean, my therapist, obviously, my dog, she's actually registered as an emotional support animal. I feel like I'm her emotional support human sometimes though, because she's a little particular with how she's treated in her daily routine. But I mean, she just helps me get out of bed most days. And I mean, like I have no choice. If I don't, like she'll go to the bathroom on my carpet. So like that helps. Like she's a really big thing that keeps me happy. And like friends like you and, our group of friends, I think like growing up, like it was really hard for me to like maintain long lasting friendships. And I think I was just like telling myself like, what's the point? Like these people don't actually like you, like, and I think it's just meeting other people who just tell you like, hey, it's okay. Like, like I got your back and it's okay for you to open up. Like I'll hold your hand through everything. I'll let you run away to my house at like 9 o'clock and give you gin and tonics and let you talk about your feelings.
Honestly, I'll use a good G&T sometimes,
Yeah, just a hard stiff drink and, cry a little bit. Honestly, it's amazing the kind of people that I've met and the kind of people I've been able to open up to and have open up to me. Like I had like a Twitter like mutual, like we don't know each other in person. We've never met in person. And she was like, she DM'd me and she was like, hey, like, I just want to thank you. I don't think I've ever told you this, but like you talking about therapy so often and openly, like it convinced me to give therapy a try again. And I literally like started crying when I read that. I was just like, oh my God, like that's great. Like I'm glad that somebody is like realizing like, okay, like, yeah, I can give this another try. Like I can do it. Like somebody else is going through it. So I'm not alone. And if I can make like one other person feel less lonely, like, maybe I'm doing something right. Yeah.
I mean, you're
So
definitely doing something right because you got somebody else to seek help or seek therapy again. I feel like that's
yeah.
such a big deal. And that's the kind of difference that you're making by making or destigmatizing mental health and talking about it. I feel like people still don't know how to talk about mental health. They don't know like what to give it a name. Like, is it terrible that I'm going through this? Like, why is it such a stigma in our community? You know what I mean? And you've kind of
Yeah.
overcome that. And I feel like that's a really important step that we have to take as a community, because as you were
Yeah.
saying before, like Asian American communities were very much like face all about like what we look like on the outside and saving face, at least like the older generation, right? And now that
Absolutely.
we're more educated, now that we actually have tools, the fact that someone like you is utilizing that, excuse me, Ugh, Thursdays. But I feel like that's really important. And clearly you made a difference in somebody's life, and people are continually reading your social media content. And that can only continue to kind of snowball in a positive way. You're just going to keep getting people who spread the word about your journey, and then they're going to start sharing their journey. And all of a sudden, like everyone's going to be like, hey, mental health is a thing, but it's not something to be scared of,
Yeah.
And that is awesome. So I'm really, really proud of you. And also like really thank you for being so open and about sharing. So can you tell us about some tools and strategies that you've learned over the course of the last 3 years that you've been able to help instances where you felt anxiety or felt like, you needed to kind of pick yourself back up again and be like, hey, I can do this. Tell us like
Yeah.
what things you've been able to do.
Yeah. So okay, well, I'll start with the first one.
Mhm.
That's journaling. I'm really bad at it because I have like the attention span of like a fly. So I'm getting a little bit better at it. But whenever I would notice, I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed with my feelings. I'm very much a heart on my sleeve, gets overwhelmed by emotions, and then identifies them later kind of person. I would just pull up like my phone and just type quick notes like, okay, it's I feel like it's really hard to breathe. I'm getting really hot. Like if something happened at work today, I think it's because like I'm really anxious that I made a mistake. It's gonna be okay. I think it'll be okay. Just talking out like and processing things is really important, at least for me, because I feel like my mind races like a million miles a minute, especially if I'm going through like anxiety and just having a little quick attack. But that's really helped. It doesn't have to be like paragraphs and paragraphs. Like you're not writing a novel, you're just writing quick things and like words to kind of identify what you're feeling. Um, I also have a mantra
Yeah.
that I tell myself. So when my depression and anxiety were really, really bad, my therapist gave me a window marker. So it's one of those markers that you can write on glass with. And she was like, whenever your self-esteem feels like it's not existing, and you're having a really bad day, just look at the stuff that you wrote to yourself on your mirror. So I would write my affirmations on my mirror, like, hey, you're beautiful. Like, I know that's so cheesy, but like you gotta tell yourself that at least once a day, like I had to tell, like I would write like, I'm more than just a body, I'm a soul to know. My mantra is, you're the sky, everything else is just the weather. So like I am the only thing that's constant in my life. Everything will come and go, but I will always have myself to lean on. So I would do that. I don't have my affirmations and mantra up anymore, because I don't really feel like I need them, but maybe in the future I'll get a tattoo that symbolizes my mantra and it'll be part of me forever. Maybe. That's a really big maybe.
Good,
um,
yeah.
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe after a couple of gin and tonics, I don't know. But I think the one,
Yeah.
yeah. I think the one big tool that I have been using is just like these 3 steps. So my therapist, I'm probably like paraphrasing it a lot, but first step is to identify, just become aware that you're going through something, become aware that you're feeling a certain emotion. And then second is to validate. So, you kind of have your logical side, and then you have your heart and or your emotions, and you kind of have your logical side talk to your heart and vice versa. Say it's normal to feel this way. It's okay that you're feeling this way because you're human. Anybody else would react to this. It's given your circumstances, given your history, given like everything that makes you you. that's totally fine. Like, let's just feel this. And then, letting go and reframing. I think reframing is like a really big thing that like it's taken me a lot of practice and I'm still not perfect at it. I don't know if I will ever be, but you know what? That's life. Like just reframing that initial, oh my God, the world's ending kind of thought to, it's not a big deal. Like I can do it. Like I can take care of this. Like I think the one thing that I kind of like have to reframe for myself all the time is just like, oh my God, everybody hates me. Oh my God, people are just like pretending to like me. And it's just like, no, no, no. You feel that way because you were a kid and people were very fake with you, but everybody was children. So what do you expect, like, but that's not true anymore. You've come so far, you've created bonds, real authentic friendships, and people that you are going to be friends with for the rest of your life who really understand where you come from. And you've opened yourself up to them, so everything's going to be okay. And just reframe that into, that's just your anxiety talking. We don't have to listen to that today. So yeah.
You know what's interesting about anxiety? So I remember someone told me this earlier. It's like anxiety isn't emotion. Anxiety is actually a state of being in terms of like your chemical, whatever's happening in your body chemically. So what happens? Sorry, I'm like a science nerd. So this is what happens when I think about
Dr.
like
Daphne Tan.
physical therapist went to school for biology. But when you think about anxiety, it's actually what we call a sympathetic state. So a sympathetic state is your fight or flight response, right? And a parasympathetic state is your relaxed response. So usually when we get kicked into hyperdrive and we think about the things that give us these kind of negative emotions, we associate that with like stress. And so when we're stressed, all these stress hormones come out, right? That means like adrenaline, that means cortisone, and all of that contributes to your sympathetic response to your fight or flight. And that's when anxiety really starts to build, like physiologically speaking. Sorry, I'm like completely nerdy. Let me know if I need to stop. But like I'm completely nerdy right now because like what happens is that your blood pressure goes up, your heart starts to race, your breath, like your breathing rate goes up too. And all of that contributes to a state of anxiety. And you're like, oh my God, I can't breathe. It just like increases it even more, and it just like this like cycle that people find it really hard to break. And I feel like people don't realize that because they contribute anxiety to their stress. And sometimes like you've been able to, first of all, like calm down those triggers, right? I feel like that's the most important thing that you were able to do. And I feel like people don't realize that it's such a huge step because people think it's just like an inevitable thing. Like, oh my God, I have anxiety. Like it's going to stay forever. But hearing the tools that you've used has been so helpful. Like for me, thoughts kind of fly by all the time, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, there's like 10,000 things in my brain. And like, I feel like having a recording of what I'm saying, granted, like I don't like my voice, so I just never play it. But the fact that I can hear it out loud also, so I definitely understand why that's so helpful. So thank you for doing that. I think like people really do need to understand that it's okay to talk out loud to nobody, right? It's kind of weird at first, right? When you're like talking to yourself.
Yeah, if that's what helps you, like get out of your own like storm in your head, like do it. Why not?
It's definitely a tool that is super useful. One thing I was curious about though, sometimes you like feel a ton of stuff, right? And we don't know how to describe our emotions. How did you find your vocabulary for that?
My therapist. And I do follow a lot of like psychologists and like counselors on like social media. I think that's really helpful. And just having like other kind of, the way that my therapist like talks about it is just like a lot of the things we feel are secondary emotions. Anger is a secondary emotion. Nervousness, secondary emotion. What's really what you're actually feeling, you kind of have to like just dig a little bit deeper into the actual level of like what is actually making you angry. So usually it's coming from a self. For me, it comes from a self of like who doesn't feel good enough, who doesn't feel like they're doing anything right. So it's just, very hard on yourself and just very low self-esteem. But that's usually where it comes from. And I think like she has like these like worksheets that's literally a chart of like emotions, and then like in the center is like, I don't feel like I'm good enough. And I'm like, is that usually what people is that everybody's feeling, that we're not enough? And she's like, it's a pretty universal feeling. It's not everybody's, but it's a human thought to have, that we're never enough. And it's scary to hear it for the first time, that like, oh my God, nobody knows what they're doing, like nobody has anything figured out. But at the same time, it's comforting because, like, strength and community and knowing that you're not alone.
Gotcha. I love that. I never thought about it versus like primary versus secondary, because like for us, when we think emotions, we're like, oh, we're angry, we're sad, we're anxious, we're worried, those like all of our emotions. But it sounds like the most important thing is like asking, why do you feel that way?
Yeah.
Right. And I never would have thought of it that way. So that gives me something else to work on for myself as well. I just wanted to dive into the cultural aspect of mental health a little bit. So can you tell us about interacting with a therapist who isn't from your culture? Like, what was that like? And you said she was pretty woke, right? Was it because you said she was younger? Is it because she educated herself, or she's just someone who's just really open? Can you describe that relationship for us?
Yeah. So she's white, but she did grow up around a lot of POC. And I think, I know not a lot of therapists do this. So I think in addition to her own personal experiences, like she made a point to, kind of be inclusive to other experiences. At the same time, there is kind of like contention with, what I'm saying and what she's trying to tell me. So I do find myself like kind of questioning, like, oh, is this okay for me to do? Like, do I just feel uncomfortable because it's different from what I've been brought up? Or am I uncomfortable because like it doesn't fit who I am as a person, Like, one of my worries for the future, she calls it future tripping when I worry too much about the future, is that like I'm gonna have to take care of my brother, who I am 22 years older than. So he's basically my kid. So when he gets to college, I'm going to have to financially and emotionally support him because my parents are going to be a little bit older and they're not going to chase after a teenager. And she's like, but that's not your kid, And in Asian culture, you're like, if that's your family, you take care of your family. I think I'm very much the black sheep of my family, right? Like, I don't like going back. Like, I'll go home and see my immediate family sometimes, but even then it's not that often. But I don't go back for the big family gatherings anymore. I mean, COVID, but like, I stopped doing that like a long time ago. Like, I've gotten called out by a couple family members for not showing up to some things. But at the same time, I'm like, why would I do that? I don't feel connected to you. I feel out of place here. Like, I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I don't feel that. So I think kind of already being there in my personal life of like separating myself from the family aspect of our Asian culture, like that kind of helped. But I do still kind of feel that like, but that's not right. Like, I don't think that's the right thing to do.
Mhm.
And then another voice is going, are you sure? Because you're kind of already doing it. Like, why do you keep worrying about people who are responsible for themselves? Be responsible for yourself first. And then if you can, then you can fill other people's cups. So
That's
yeah.
true. We always forget that it takes a lot to fill somebody else, right? And if you're feeling empty, there's no way you can pour it into somebody. Or if you are pouring into someone anyway, it's going to be really detrimental to your health, but also like you're not really giving quality, right? And so with family, it's a little difficult because like growing up in Asian culture, family, they tell you family is everything. But sometimes like family, you don't choose your family, they're given to you,
Yeah.
And there are instances where relationships might not be the strongest, which is difficult, right? But hopefully, like as time goes on, you're going to be able to continue to build on the relationship you do have, which is amazing, and they're going to be the ones that support you. So thanks for sharing about that. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about your mental health journey, anything that we haven't covered yet? What was that like for you in terms of in the past couple of weeks, or I guess like the past year where you felt like the best? When was that switch for you? When did you feel like, oh yeah, like I can actually begin to see who I am?
I think it was around my 1 year mark of therapy. I had, oh God, okay. I'm not talking shit, but like, this is something that just happened. Um, I had gotten into a fight with my ex at the time, and he kind of said something along the lines of like, you haven't changed at all. Like, what was the point of like you know, like you're still doing the same things. And I was like, I brought that to my therapist and I was like, have I grown? Do you think I've grown? And she was like, what are you talking about? Like, yes, you have. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. You know, like I have grown. Oh wait, okay. And I was just like, yeah, you're right. I think I have. Like it takes a lot more to get to put myself in that hole that I would just normally find myself in. Like I like the way that I would think I wouldn't catastrophize like anymore. Like it just slowly day by day, like it changed. And I didn't notice it until that growth was challenged. And I was like, yeah, fuck that. Like I have grown. I'm doing it. And I think, you know, change of environment really helped too. And just kind of sticking to my routine, like realizing that I have my own things that I really enjoy doing and making time for myself. Like I never used to do that. I was like the type of person who's like, I can't be alone. I can't be alone. What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, please, like, don't leave me alone. Like I have like abandonment issues that we're working through in therapy, but like, you know, just realizing like, oh, I can be by myself now. And I'm not like driving myself crazy. I'm sorry, that's an ableist term, but like, I'm not like, you know, just sitting there consumed with all of these things that probably aren't even true. Like it's just it was a really big, like it was like a flip had switched. It was like a switch had flipped.
I mean,
And
you
like
can flip switches as well.
yeah, like like it was just like feeling like this weight had like lifted off my shoulders, like of, you know, telling myself that I wasn't good enough or that I didn't deserve like peace or like happiness because of my past mistakes. Like it was just like when you put your glasses on in the morning, like you see things a little bit clearer, a little bit brighter, you know, like it felt amazing. Like when I realized that, like, yeah, I have come a long way. It was just like, hey, good job.
Seriously, though, good job on that growth. I feel like that's the thing about surrounding ourselves with people who support you, right? I think as we continue to grow, we realize what relationships we value most, and we realize that we need people to build us up. And now that you have that community surrounding you, right? Isn't that great that, you know, you don't need anything or anyone else except for yourself and the community that you've chosen, which is awesome. I'm so thrilled to hear this from you and just hear about your journey from like start to finish. Christine, thank you so much for sharing, and like thank you for, you know, being a friend for me as well. Like this girl is amazing, guys. I'm so lucky to have her in my life. She's my support group as well, so I totally understand when you say like having people who surround you with positivity and support are people that you want to keep. And so that's why the light in your life is so important. One thing I did want to ask you though, what are some things that fill you? What are some things that you find that you can do for yourself that kind of build you up?
Putting on a really cute outfit. No, I mean, honestly, just like playing guitar, lots of Taylor Swift, singing around the house. Like I'm trying to not bring up my housemates because I talk about them so darn much, but like hanging out with my housemates and just like watching the silliest things on TV together, and just we watch The Bachelorette every week. So and The Bachelor when it was on. So we would just have like really like great quality time. We cook dinner together. And I think just, you know, doing all of these things, like all of this self-care, it was a little difficult at first because it was just like, oh, I have to do this. Like, no, I want to do this. I want to do this because it's going to make me happy. And I want to be happy. So, and just, you know, it's just a lot of like singing and just being weird and just authentically being myself and not just holding back from what I want to do anymore. Like if I want to go out on a walk with my dog, yeah, I'll do that. If I want to go work out, yeah, I'll do that. If I want to run to Trader Joe's and buy myself some flowers, do that.
Yes. Well, that honestly, Trader Joe's is the most gorgeous peonies right now.
Oh my God. Wait, okay, I'm gonna go get some. I'm gonna go there tomorrow.
TJ's run right after this. I'll see you there.
Yeah, see you there.
I'm so glad to hear that. I think people need to find what works for them too, because it's really hard when you're just like sitting there and be like, okay, what do I want to do to fill myself up, you know? And the fact you revisited your hobbies and your friends have kind of supported you through that is like tools that people are hearing now to kind of help them through that. So again, thanks so much for sharing. So we're going to kind of wrap this interview up, but do you have any final suggestions, anything that you kind of want to shout out, anything that you have any advice for people who might be on this mental health journey on their own right now?
Yeah. I just want to tell anybody who's like out there and just, you know, is kind of scared to take the first step, that change and growth is really scary. But I think, you know, we all deserve to be in a place where we feel safe and at peace with ourselves. So you can do it. There's people out there who are gonna, like, they can't wait for you to get to that place, and you deserve it. So yeah. Good luck.
1000%. Anyone want a final shout outs? You want any social media plugs?
Hi Brittany, I hope you watch this.
We'll get this there.
She's probably gonna be busy, but I think my housemates are probably gonna watch this too. So
awesome. There you go. All right, guys. So that is it from Christine and I. Christine, again, thank you so much for being here and for sharing on your mental health journey. It's been so enlightening listening to you. And also I'm just like so thrilled to see where you were then and then where you are now. I'm just like that smile is really genuine and it makes me so happy. So okay, I'm really happy. But guys, she's an amazing human being, which means you should follow her Instagram. So I'm going to link that down below for you guys, for her to click like and subscribe for all of her stuff. Again, thank you guys all so much for listening. And if you guys haven't already subscribed to our channel, please hit that like button for us. Don't miss any more amazing content like this amazing lady over here. And then we'll catch you guys later. Have a wonderful Saturday, y'all, and have a great weekend. Do something positive for yourself today.